morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Ted Schilowitz. It's This Week in XR. It's July 16th, 2021. We'll be joined shortly by Josh Wehrly, one of the co-founders of Rec Room. We talked about them, I think 2 weeks ago, Ted. They are now a bona fide unicorn. They've had a bunch of upgrades this week, so we'll look forward to Josh sharing some of their plans with us.
Yeah, and I join you this morning from our Viacom CBS offices in fabulous New York City, my first work travel trip in 18 months, where we had a bunch of like COVID safe team strategy meetings around technology and innovation. So it was a fun couple days, and I will be heading on a plane soon, so I'm going to miss the interview portion. I'm going to let you take care of that today.
All right, thanks, Ted. So what can you tell us about Viacom's strategic plans that won't get you fired?
Here's what I can tell you. The desire to explore new content horizons, new ideas that relate to what television should and will be in the near and far off future has never been stronger and higher. And in fact, some of the news stories we're going to talk about reflect other companies that are diving into interactive entertainment, next gen entertainment, more funding for VR things and things like that.
Well, GenVid raised $113 million. It looks like for kind of streaming interactive game shows.
Yeah, and I know Cindy Holland just a little bit. She was an ex-Netflix executive, so there's going to be a cross-pollination of our two stories today. Yeah. She and I were both brought into the Variety Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, and in the after event, we talked a little bit, and she had a very genuine interest in things that don't look like traditional television from an entertainment perspective. And we talked a lot because she knew that I was involved in this in a much earlier stage. And lo and behold, 2 years later, here she pops up after leaving Netflix in a new startup that's extraordinarily well funded and ready to go tackle it. So I look forward to
Variety characterizes her as an advisor to the company.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where it goes, like if she ends up joining full time or taking on a significant role, but she's definitely a force to be reckoned with. She's got serious chops.
And speaking of Netflix, they're going into cloud gaming, it looks like.
Yeah, they did some, kind of coy announcements a few months ago, but now they've hired an exec who comes from EA, comes from Facebook, and is taking strategic steps to, understand that there's a lot more than television out there. What's that?
Mike Verdu is the guy's name.
Yeah, so that's a good one to keep an eye on.
I mean, everybody is in cloud gaming. It's crazy. Google, Microsoft, Apple, you name it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting, what I can tell you, what we're looking at and trying to figure out is, where does our imprint exist? Viacom CBS has an interesting legacy and an interesting history. And I think just like how television found various veins of success by not just following the leader, by following its own voice, this is what I kind of am interested as what might happen with Netflix, what might happen with this company GenVid, is it all just going to look like the same 6 video games over and over again, the adrenaline shooter stuff and the puzzle solving, or will we actually find some new voices and some new ideas that really push out the boundaries and kind of broaden the market a little bit for people that do sort of gaming and stuff?
Also in the news, we have Resolution Studios, the guys who made Blast On and Angry Birds VR, which I highly recommend, by the way, terrific game. They just closed on $25 million in a Series C round, co-led by Qualcomm. So seems like they're positioning themselves to be bought by Facebook like everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? I mean, there's just this never-ending stream of stuff that's happening, and they created a little mini VR sensation with that Demio game, right? That people are liking, and now they're getting funded, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so I did something fun this week. I went over to Warner Brothers. They were ostensibly going to show me a 5G demo, but the way they did it was by giving me the Harry Potter experience that they're putting into New York.
Oh, right.
Chaos at Hogwarts.
Yes.
So I got to do Chaos at Hogwarts. It's made by Dreamscape. So it feels very much like a Dreamscape experience, but Harry Potter fans are going to go nuts. Right. Because, you literally like walk through a wall at the station and you're inside of Hogwarts, and, there are dragons and creatures, and it's great. It's exceedingly well done.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Did they mention when it's going to open in the city? I know it's
supposedly this week, I'm told. So even though I wasn't with any of the people who really made the experience, I was there for the 5G guys. And I was like, well, I hate to tell you guys, I really just came for the VR. The 5G, I did get them to admit the 5G may take a bit longer than we've been led to believe.
You broke up when you said, is it open yet? Is it actually open in New York already, or is it just
It's supposedly opening this week.
this week? Great.
Yeah. By the way, a lot of news coming out about LBE suddenly surging. You know, there's been a lot of pent up demand, obviously, and nobody who goes to location-based VR destinations seems worried in the least about shared headsets.
Yeah, I think if they're vaccinated and the headsets are, cleaned properly and stuff, people feel like it's pretty safe. And the Roaring 20s are back. People want to get out of their home and they want to do fun stuff.
Yeah, that was one I wasn't quite sure was going to happen, but it's certainly, there's so many people reporting it now. I'll tell you what, the Harry Potter thing is going to be mobbed. No so let's wrap up. I know you got to get going, Ted. Let's wrap up with the ugly truth. It's actually an ugly truth by 3 New York Times reporters, which has just come out, and it's about Facebook, and it's built around the revelations of the 2016 disinformation hacks, which took the company completely by surprise. Like they didn't even have rules about it. It never occurred. I mean, this is, again, Facebook, move fast and break things. And a corollary to that is, and pay no attention to those unsightly, unintended consequences. Right. But this one really took them by surprise, which doesn't surprise me in the least. And I don't blame them for that. But when they found out, their response was, well, we sent a letter to the FBI. I guess they don't think it's that bad. So let's just keep it kind of quiet. And the people who thought they should be yelling their heads off were quietly repositioned in the company and, assigned to, it's like The Wire and that cop that got reassigned to the Harbor Patrol because they knew he got seasick.
Yeah, right.
It's funny because here's some great news, is that it looks like, at least according to ClearPoint, that Oculus is on track to sell 20 million headsets this year.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
The number keeps increasing. I mean, I think, as many of the pundits and people that just thought this thing would never catch on, you and I were not those people. We thought it will catch on. It's going to have its, various stages of success. And they keep increasing their projections on how many people want these things. Clearly tells us that the right price point and a tether, a no tether solution that has good enough content to sort of see where the future goes, at a few $100, there's a lot of people that want to play in these worlds and be in these worlds. So we're, maybe we're onto something, Charlie.
Yeah. I think it's, this first wave, as always, is being driven by gamers. And then, of course, the things that are really going to be important in VR, which are all the non-game social things, all the things that we do on our PCs that will become spatial. That wave is going to come sooner. It's a little bit like PCs in the home, right? Everybody thought they were for games until the internet came along, and they're like, wow, it's for shopping, it's for communicating, it's for, video. So, anyway, interesting dichotomy, right? We love Facebook, we love Oculus, yet some of the things that Facebook does are perplexing.
Like you said, when you move fast and run quick, you're going to make mistakes, and you have to sometimes own up to those mistakes and own them.
I think the truth is that Facebook needs to be broken up and social media needs to be regulated by the government, at least when it reaches this kind of scale, because of the damage it can do.
Yeah.
And I don't think, as I've said before, I know that sounds scary to Facebook executives and shareholders, but I'm telling you, remember the phone company. There would be no internet if they didn't break up Ma Bell.
Right. Yeah.
So I think people have to get over it.
And for those that haven't
remember that you and I, as futurists, know it's really more about history than it is about guessing about the future.
Right. We can always look past to predict what is going to happen in the future.
Because humans.
right? Because who we are. People. Exactly.
But they say we are apes with bombs and guns.
Yeah, exactly. And well, for those that, the small collective of people that listen to us that haven't seen The Social Dilemma yet on their favorite, streaming service or whatever, where they can find it.
Oh, yeah.
It is definitely worth a watch. It's a good wake-up call for what is really going on behind the scenes. And, the importance of starting to really understand what's going on with this stuff, and how manipulative it can be. So, but on the flip side, like you said, we're very happy that VR is continuing to expand and grow, and they have the dollars and wherewithal.
And again, I mean, there are estimates that these headsets are flying out the door at a loss of $200 or $300 if you include marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, Facebook has pockets deep enough to
they have a
eat
big
that
enough
loss.
valuation
Sort of like what Microsoft did with Xbox.
Right, they have a big enough valuation to really take that bet, and Zuckerberg and his team of execs believe it. But I think what I'll sort of drop into this is, because we talked about it a lot this week, is you mentioned it a little bit when you talked about all the other stuff that may be coming. Gamers still really have driven the heart and soul of this thing, but we talk a lot about the unintended consequences, the knowledge of what we don't know about how people are going to adopt and use these things outside of the common understanding is really where the growth markets are going to be.
Yes,
so you and I are going to keep a very close eye on it.
Because it's got to be something that's native to the medium. It's not going to be something that we repurposed from, two-dimensional media.
Correct. Yeah.
And I don't think we've really even seen the beginning of that kind of spatial content movement that will, like YouTube influencers, wash over us like a tidal wave.
Yeah. Well, as legitimate pacifists who call ourselves futurists, we are going to look back at the early 2020s. You and I are going to have these conversations when we're a little bit even older than we are now, and start to look at the era of the 2030s and really be kind of like, yeah, well, remember when it all looked like this and where it all led us to. And it's going to have a very similar track to the public dynamics of the internet and the Internet of Things and how we use technology and screens and video chat today. It's going to have a very similar trajectory that we'll be able to reflect past on. And, that's kind of what we do for a living. So,
but one of the companies that's making that happen is Rec Room. So I'm really happy that we have Josh Wehrly with us today. I'll let you go, Ted, and we'll bring in Josh. I'll see you next Friday.
Enjoy your conversation. I'm heading back to LA, and I'll see you from LA next week.
Joshua Wehrly is here with us today. He is one of the co-founders of Rec Room, as well as its head of design. Is that right, Josh? Did I get that one right?
One of our lead designers.
And what part of Rec Room do you focus on the most, or are you sort of a pan Rec Room designer?
I mostly focus on the user experience, what it's like to play the game on all of our different platforms. As you know, Rec Room started as a VR game, and now it's branched out to all of these different devices.
Yeah, I understand adding iOS and the game consoles has led to some phenomenal growth and has given you guys the ability to raise some serious money.
It has. Yeah, we've had a really exciting couple of years. 2020, we saw about a 600% growth in user activity, which is incredible. And yeah, a lot of that came from our new platforms.
So since you are the most experienced user, tell me what the experience is like on a game console versus VR. How spatial is it? How do you accomplish that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously people love it, but I've never done it myself. So please explain to me how it works.
Absolutely. So when you play Rec Room on a phone or on a console or on your PC, you can think of it as embodying sort of the avatar you would be in VR. It plays sort of like a first.
So it's a first-person point of view. You're not operating an avatar.
That's right. You're in first person. You can sort of see your hands. You can grab and interact with things. And the way that I think about it is it's sort of like you're living inside the VR headset of a VR player. We have a phrase we use internally. It's called radically cross-platform. And so the way that we think about Rec Room is it's not just a cross-platform game. We want it to be the same game, the same content on all these different devices. And so our way of doing that is really trying to put players inside the same character with the same sort of capabilities, no matter what device they're on. So in VR, you just have your tracked controllers and you can move your hands around. On a controller, you got to use buttons for those kinds of things.
Yeah, as a user of Rec Room myself, one of the things I use it for is I teach VR at Chapman University, and I always take my students there and introduce them to how simple it is to make things in the spatial environment, especially with the fantastic tools that you guys have built and continue to develop. One of the things I ask my students to do is to make a Rec Room movie. You know, where people take a snippet of a movie and then they act it out in Rec Room.
Yeah.
It is so much fun and so hilarious. And then you guys have this massive Discord support behind it. How important has Discord become to your platform?
Discord is definitely important. It is sort of one piece of our community engagement, but our community is a huge part of Rec Room. We really do make a lot of decisions and inform a lot of decisions based on conversations with the community and feedback from the community. And yeah, absolutely, Discord is an important part of that. We have the luxury by being this sort of social game and platform that we can interact with our community in Rec Room. It's pretty fun to hop into.
You find them where they are.
You find them where they are, exactly. Yeah.
So Rec Room recently added a payment system for its makers, a little bit like Roblox. Is it the beginning of a kind of economy inside of Rec Room where people buy things from each other and there are incentives for builders?
That's definitely part of how we're thinking about it. So creators, players in Rec Room who make things can choose to sell their creations for virtual currency. And for some of those veteran players that have been around for a long time and have accumulated a lot of that virtual currency, we're dipping our toes into ways to pay them out. So we have our creator compensation program. And a big part of that is we think about this as a way to make Rec Room a really good use of time for these players who are really invested. You have players who are spending many hours building really compelling content that's valuable for us, it's valuable for the community, and we want that to keep happening, right? We want those players to feel like this is worthwhile for them.
Okay. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where makers will build a space and there'll be some kind of microtransaction to be there?
Oh, sorry, I lost you for a second.
I said, well, I'm just thinking about how makers will work inside of Rec Room. I just saw this week, I guess you guys put out a release about improved avatars, in particular that can be made not by Rec Room, but by other users who would presumably, at least some of them, charge for them.
Yeah, that's true. We definitely want to empower our creators to be able to charge for their creations, and we want to, as much as possible, give them the flexibility and freedom to sort of make what they want. It's their creation in a lot of ways. Now, that being said, we have a code of conduct that's really important for our community, and just making sure that Rec Room continues to be this, safe and welcoming environment for players from all walks of life, as we like to say. And so it's not 100% open season, but the way that we think about it is we try to set a good example for the way we want the community to run with our content that we produce. But that doesn't mean that creators can't be creative. So, we don't want to make a game that is pay to win, for example, that a player could choose to spend currency and just beat other players. And we know that's not the kind of community that or kind of content we want to have in the community. But creators can explore whatever works for their room because it's their room.
Let's talk about this. Everybody is buzzing about this word metaverse. Probably because Epic Games' last billion-dollar raise was supposedly for the explicit purpose of building out their metaverse. What does metaverse even mean? And is it like we used to say in the 90s, cyberspace, before people started talking about the internet? There was a phrase from the mid-90s, cyberspace was made more specific by the World Wide Web. We didn't even say the internet.
Sure.
So is the metaverse cyberspace? Is it something we're going to call something else? Or does it mean that, there's this giant inoperable interoperable spatial world that is as yet unbuilt.
I can give you my personal
Yeah,
answer.
we're just just two friends chatting it up here. So I'm not going to put out a press release and say that Rec Room says this.
Right. Yeah. Well, for me, I think that the metaverse is about creating virtual spaces where the experience is so compelling that you remember your interactions in your time in really the same way that you remember and reflect on your real life experiences, that your ability to interact with other people is so human and compelling that it is nearly as good as a real life interaction. And so whether that's all brought together by a single connected ecosystem, maybe not, but I really think of it as sort of this evolution of the internet, of going from sort of abstract digital communications, messages and photos that are sort of static, to videos, to truly immersive real-time interactions where, when you're teaching your class in Rec Room, that probably feels much more like teaching a class in person than it does teaching a class on a message board or a forum or something. You have this extra layer of connection.
Well, I mean, the competition is Zoom.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And the answer is we go back and forth.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be in a headset really for more than an hour. They're not comfortable enough yet. They're hot. Air doesn't circulate through them. So, you have heat management issues within the headset, especially as a glasses wearer, that you're doing heat management constantly.
Sure.
So we're not really the form factor yet. In my opinion about the metaverse is it's an interesting topic. It is more like talking about Snow Crash versus Ready Player One than it really is talking about what spatial computing is today.
Sure.
In those novels, there were the one thing that they had in common was there was a unified avatar system, so that my avatar could go any place. I have my backpack with my costumes and my props and my virtual money and my smartphone, all the things that I would have in one form or another in real life. So that to me was the unifying element in both of those books. But we still don't know how AR and VR are going to work together, right? In Snow Crash, they were blended together. In Ready Player One, the VR world is distinct from reality. So very different approaches, similar ideas, right? But it is rather premature. Metaverses, as we understand them today with their unified avatar systems, seem to be rooted in their existing platforms, right? So Rec Room has very distinctive avatars, which, as I said earlier, you're improving, which is great. And I think that that's sort of the natural evolution, right? Everybody's avatars are going to keep improving.
Sure.
We see, of course, VR chat is entirely about avatars, right? That entire virtual world or metaverse, if you will, is dependent on, people changing avatars constantly. That's what you do there.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting because I think we've seen that, the Rec Room avatars are simple and hopefully charming, but sort of abstract. And it's been,
so are the ones in Altspace. I mean, let's face it,
Sure.
None of them are real. I wish we didn't have this word virtual reality, because it really is simulated reality. And I think a lot of people get into VR for the first time and they're like, wait, what? I'm in a video game.
Yeah. The thing that's been really cool for me to see, though, is while it may be simulated reality, it is real connections. And I keep going back to that sort of social aspect of the relationships you build with people, the conversations you have with them, the memories. It's kind of a social network,
right? Second Life was the first social network, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in this case, I think that part of why many of these apps can have these sort of abstract avatars is that the human really comes through, and it's the human that we connect with, and more even so than the digital representation of ourselves. And so kind of going back to what I was saying about the metaverse, I think that to me feels like the really new and compelling thing that we've been seeing over the last couple of years is you can have these very human interactions and relationships. And, we have players that have been married and met playing Rec Room. They've built not just a relationship, but a lifelong, meaningful one.
Wait, there are a lot of people growing up on Rec Room.
For sure. Yeah.
So, well, that's really exciting for you guys. You just had a massive raise of, at $80 million, something like that, and your valuation.
Yeah, $100 million for a $1.25 billion valuation.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys have come a long way since 2016 when I was first playing ping pong on Rec Room using PCVR. But congratulations on all that.
Hey, thank you so much.
Parting thoughts on Rec Room. What do you want I think all of our listeners probably have access to VR and game consoles. So where should we send them at Rec Room? What are you most excited about? Obviously, you've evolved so far beyond paintball. So next time I go into Rec Room, what should I be looking for?
You should check out some of the amazing content made by the community. In particular, we just shipped the full body costumes like we were sort of talking about earlier. And all those came out just a few days ago. And within hours, there were already all kinds of hilarious and compelling outfits that were available on our invention store. So I encourage your listeners to go check that out. Try on some fun outfits. And
well, we know it's a big deal in VR chat. People love collecting avatars and having different styles that they can use in different situations to suit their mood or the context.
For sure. And when we've heard from our community how much they appreciate and value all of the kinds of outfit items that they can purchase in the game, their hats and shirts and stuff like that. So
yeah, you can spend a long time browsing around the store there. So,
there's a lot in there now.
There's a lot to do in Rec Room. So congrats and continued success. Can't wait to see how Rec Room continues to evolve. And I'm sure whatever the metaverse is, Rec Room will have an important role in it.
Hey, thanks so much, Charlie.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah.